Hello and welcome to my uni experience part 4, the class adventure to South Africa. So between the 24th of January to the 7th of Feb, most of my class went to Cape Town in South Africa, where we worked with the students at the University of Cape Town, and we did activities and trips whilst we were there. It was the holiday of a lifetime. Officially it's an educational exchange, because most of our uni class, the ones that went, did workshops whilst we were in South Africa, and we collaborated with some of the students and the facilitators that came in, right, at their university, and exchanged cultures. So this video will be covering the whole trip in all of its magnificent glory. Pretty much a documentary, I'd say. Yeah, I would also say I'm quite the archivist in the class, but I couldn't have done this without the photos and videos from everyone else as well as including my own. Um, and I'll be going from the 23rd to the end of the holiday, as this video will be long enough as it is. But in part 5, I'll probably talk more about the build up to it in a bit more detail, among whatever else I talk about in part 5. In the comment section, there will be a timestamp, so you can see like when I talk about what. You can skip to whatever day if you went on the trip. You can see the day in particular that you want to listen to. But yeah, let's begin this class documentary about our trip to Cape Town, South Africa. So starting Monday before our trip, the 23rd, I was doing some last minute packing. I got some sunscreen, or sun cream, some extra shorts, and a few other odds and bobs, right? I spent a lot of the day packing my suitcase and my backpack. My suitcase had never been so heavy, with 2 weeks worth of stuff in it. It was a challenge to pack it all in. I had to kneel on the suitcase to get the zip to go all the way around, but eventually I managed to. It was just as bad coming back because I had more stuff. But yeah, I had to empty my backpack from all the shit inside it that's normally there, right? Like some of the stuff I just dumped in my drawer, right? This one, yeah, here we are. Look, my old phone, top trumps, more top trumps, an old Nintendo thing. I've just dumped in the drawer because I don't know what to do with it. But yeah, I packed my backpack to have stuff that I could have with me on the flight and that were valuable. So, phone charger, power pack, passport, wallet, laptop, some other small things and some sweets. Yeah, I just dumped them by my door, ready to go. We had to be at the bus station for 4:45 in the morning. Of course, we love that. I was scared that I would be asleep and not wake up from my alarm, so I decided to do an all-nighter. A lot of my class decided to do the same thing. My cluster in particular, we played Mario Party for a while until Henry's parents dropped us off. Bless him. I'm really grateful that they did drop us off, because when we got to the bus station, it started raining, during the time that we would be walking there. But yeah, eventually more and more people started trickling in until the coach arrived. We went on the National Express, put our stuff inside, was sort of under the bus, it'll hold the luggage bit, and we go. It's a 4-hour ride to Heathrow from Sophia Gardens. So I actually edited part 3 of my uni experience on this coach. I got some sleep as well as I could on the coach being sat at. But there we go. Around about 8 o'clock in the morning, we were outside the premises of Heathrow, and we had to get to Terminal 4. It was like a solid 10-minute drive between each terminal, and I didn't know Heathrow was that huge. I mean, I've never been. I had never been. So I just thought it was like one big building. But no. At 15:15, we got off the coach, we got our stuff, and we go on inside. we had to get our boarding pass off the website and show it to this person who let us through. And we put our luggage on this rack after speaking to a dude who asked where we were going. I say Cape Town, gives me my this boarding pass thing printed out, and I depart without my massive suitcase, leaving it in the conveyor belt thingy. Once through there, we had to go through the security checks for our hand luggage by emptying my bag and putting the contents within into trays. I hated doing that. Like, a part of me kept thinking, like, I don't know why I thought this, right? But part of me kept thinking, like, what if I'd packed a bomb or something that I'd forgotten about? Because, that's the sort of thing I'd have in my room, a bomb. But no, they're not allowed enough student accommodation, so. Silly me, forgot bombs were not permitted at Heathrow Airport. But no, I did not have any bombs. And we go on through. Anyway, once through there, we had more freedom. We were through then to the airport shops and restaurants, so in very typical student fashion, we went to Wetherspoons. Only not with Wetherspoons pricing. I had a lovely cooked breakfast, it was lovely. It was lovely, just expensive. Outside, then there was a lovely view of the airplane that we would go on. I hadn't been on an airplane since I was a baby, right? But I don't remember this, so it would be the first time that I've been aware of being on a plane. This was right, and eventually the time comes when our flight is called, and we queue up. We show our boarding passes. I think we showed our passport as well. I can't remember. And we go on then into this sort of narrow tunnel that's connected to the plane. Once inside, we find our seats. Me and Levi had an arrangement, right? Because I was sat next to him for all the flights. We had an arrangement that I would sit by the window on the way to the places, so from London to Paris and then Paris to Cape Town, and he would sit by the window on the way back for the 2 flights, which I would say was a pretty good deal. I'm glad that we could come to that. It was a good deal. After a while, then, we had our passenger safety stuff, like oxygen masks falling and seatbelts on, and don't put the tray down until after they've finished the vertical ascent bit and whatnot. Once that was done, then the plane slowly began to move as it turned around the runway to the long strip, where it sped up, and it left the ground. I was a little bit nervous because, again, I didn't remember the last time I was on a plane, so this was my first time. I'm calling it my first time, And the first few seconds were like, you tilt. Were a little bit scary, but also exhilarating. The view was amazing. It was brilliant. As we went over the clouds and just seeing everything get smaller and smaller, We were given a complimentary vegetable sandwich and drink from Air France, which was the company we flew with, which tasted alright. It was free, It was not bad. This plane was only for just under an hour though, as we went from Heathrow to Charles de Gaulle? Is that the French airport?
You could call him Charles de Gaulle, of course, but to sound a little more French, you can say Charles de Gaulle.
Whatever it's called. We took off then at 12:08, and we arrived in France at 13:50, because France is an hour ahead of us, right? Around 2 p.m. then, we got off the plane and we walked through the airport and had to queue up to get through. We wouldn't see our luggage until we got to Cape Town. Once through, then we had about 2.5 hours to kill, so we all just sort of walked around the France airport shops and stuff. Eventually, we all met back. We got our stuff ready to show the ticketer, the staff, security, whatever you want to call him. And anyway, Once through, we go through this corridor onto the plane where I'd be sat for the next 12 hours. Our plane went from 5:30 in the evening to 5:30 in the morning, South African time. I was sat by the window again, next to Levi and Michael, our godly lecturer. One of our godly lecturers. Had two godly lecturers come with us. But on the plane, I set up my base, if you will. I had my bag by my legs, the mini table down once the flight took off, and on the backs of each seat were these like screens with in-flight entertainment on it. So you had like games and films and music on it, which were fab. It even had like a live map where you could see where you were and look at images of what the plane looked like in the sky, slash what the pilots could see. It was brilliant. And it said like how long was left and like what speed you were going at, and there was loads of stuff on there. It was amazing. But yeah, once again we had our safety briefing. The plane turned to face the runway, and the plane took off. I was staring out the window for ages, watching as we went above the clouds, and eventually, food arrived. It was nice. What was it? It was rice, fish pie, some bread, and some like chocolate snack. Yeah, it was lovely. Very nice. Very French. We knew that we were being fed a 3-course meal on the plane, but I didn't expect them to be given to us all at the same time, because the trays aren't that big. So I was trying to like find room wherever you could on the trays, but there we go. Fair dues. I was very full after it, and it was nice food. It was better than what I thought it would be for airplane food. Then the sun began to set after a while, and it was gorgeous to see from so high up. You know, it was great. I ended up watching 2 films as well during the ride: Freakier Friday and We're the Millers. Very different films, but they were decent, I suppose. Fair dues. I played Monopoly solo. I lost twice to some bots, but it was stupid though, because those bots would save all their money and then spend a shitload on getting like 4 houses for each of their properties in one go, which you can do on this edition. But yeah, it was rigged, I reckon. You know, and they would all avoid my stuff, but I sure as hell would end up landing on each of theirs. It was rigged AI, it was. I ended up having a small nap at one point, which I was very surprised about. Although I had a stiff neck then for like 30 minutes after. I had to sort of just like jab my neck and try and bring it back to life. You know, but I brought my neck pillow, which is over there. But even with that, my neck was still quite stiff. And my bum was starting to get really numb after a while of being sat down. So I ended up just sitting on my neck pillow, which helped a bit. But yeah, I wasn't used to being sat down for so long. Eventually, around 2 in the morning, then we had breakfast, as we only had like 3 hours left of the flight. It was a box of juices, yogurt, and breads, which were very lovely. I do remember feeling very bloated after this, though, and I remember feeling pregnant. But we lived on. The next few hours flew by then, no pun intended, as it got brighter, and 5:30 came by. We got off the plane around, what was it, like 10 to 6 in the morning, I think, and we got off our bags from the carousel. My Doctor Who luggage tag that was connected to it had snapped in mid-transit somehow. So that wasn't fun. But yeah, I am genuinely very impressed on how they managed to snap a piece of hard wood. And it is quite, well, either wood or plastic, I'm not sure, probably plastic. But I'm very surprised that they managed to do it. They probably just like grabbed my suitcase and chucked it in the plane. So yeah, but I'm just glad that my suitcase was also there. You know, I'll take my losses with the luggage tag, but if my suitcase wasn't there, I would not have been happy. We got our stuff. I mean, a minibus to take us to our hotel then. And by this point, it was like 10 to 7, I think, and our bus arrived at 7:15. We got all our stuff in then, and we arrived at our hotel around 8 in the morning, but we couldn't check in until 2. Although we could leave our bags there, which we did to have a look around the place. It was lovely. We went to these like public gardens for a bit, taking photos and whatnot of the surroundings and the scenery. And eventually we went for food around about 9 in the morning. Here I used my post office bank card for the first time, and I had this gorgeous salmon omelette and a cranberry juice, which I became hooked on. I wasn't a fan of cranberry juice back home. Well, I'm not a fan of cranberry juice back home, but here it's lovely. It's really nice. After food, then we all just sort of split off to look around for a while, looking at the surroundings and whatnot for a bit of time until about 11, because we were told that at 11, if we went back to the hotel, some of the rooms would be ready. So we get there, and after some waiting, we all had our hotel rooms ready to be moved in. I was in a room with Levi. We unpacked our stuff. I think I had a mini nap as well because I was really tired and I hadn't had a proper sleep in like 2 days at that point. And then later that evening, we went for food. Now, we had an advantage with money here. Things were much cheaper in South Africa than they are here. But yeah, when I had food, I had a strawberry milkshake with some loaded chips with a steak. But yeah, I ordered this steak and I was going to have it rare, but they gave it to me medium rare, which is still nice. But yeah, there we go. It was much cheaper too. Like that would be a solid like £30 here, but it came to the equivalent of £12, I think. So bargain. And then I had some ice cream on the way back home. Well, evening then, I started watching Better Call Saul. I planned on watching the full series, so no better time to than in the evenings once the day was over. I would also end up finishing My Uni Experience Part 3 and uploading it so that I could delete it from my phone and have extra storage for the trip. Day 2. Now, with our hotel room comes free complimentary breakfast from one of 3 places which were lush. We went to the place next door first. I ordered the Eggs Benedict, but I received a fruit bowl. I was like, okay, I don't mind. I'll have a fruit bowl. But it turned out the waiter messed it up, bless her. So she went back and fixed everyone's meals to what they should have been, which meant that I had the fruit bowl and my Eggs Benedict, which was very filling and also very lush. But I was very, very full because I had 2 breakfasts essentially that day. Henry ended up eating 5 bowls of fruit because people were getting very full, having 2 breakfasts. So that was fun. He didn't get scurvy though. That's got to be noted for him. He didn't get scurvy, so it must have worked. It was all well and good then, but we had to get on the bus at like 9:45, and the breakfast place was quite slow. So like we had our breakfasts around 9:20, I think. So we had to eat them and then run to the bus stop because on this day we were having a bus tour, so we had to get the specific bus, right? Running wasn't so fun on a full stomach, but we live. the tour guide was showing us around Cape Town and like all the stuff that we could see with the history, because the place has such a rich history. Seeing the views, Table Mountain, and just like the general landscape, it was amazing. Some of us were on the top deck. It was a proper day trip, and I loved it. First, we went to Cape Point though, because this bus tour stopped off at several places, right? And first, we went to Cape Point, the Point of Good Hope Nature Reserve, where there was a shop that we could buy things from, right? Obviously, that's what the shop is, but whatever. I got this tribal mask that you can see in the back, and some fridge magnets for the family. I've already given them the fridge magnets, so I can't show them here. But yeah, me, Christian, and Meg had some food, and then we went up this really steep path to see a gorgeous view of the place. Like you could see the beach and the sea coastal views, the background, the lighthouse, and yeah, and the weather was nice as well. Well, the weather was nice on all the days. But yeah, it was very steep, it was very hot, and I was very sweaty, but it was nice. We had some amazing photos next to the sign and with a view of the distance. It was really cool. We got to about halfway to the top then, which had a nice view and things of its own there. There was like a mini shop, I think that, and like a mini cafe or like place you could get some drinks and whatnot. But we had to turn back then and go on the coach to the next place, which was Boulders Beach, where we could see the penguins. I loved seeing the penguins, it was so good. Enjoy this slideshow now of images and videos of the penguins, because it's about to play. We went to the shop then, and I bought a drink and a penguin keychain, a gift for Mum, before getting back on the bus. It was about a 2-hour drive, I think. I can't remember, but I love being sat by the window on public transport. It's just nicer, you get a decent view, especially on the bus tour. When we got back then, some people went back to the hotel then from that bus stop, while some of us stayed out. I stayed out with a group of people. There was me, Liara, Ella, Levi, and Casey with our lecturers, right? We went out for food. I had a beef lasagna from this marketplace that had all sorts of food places around the edges. Like you had burgers and ramen, sushi, and yeah, there was loads, with a massive table area in the middle. It was gorgeous, that lasagna. Yeah, it was lovely. Lovely scran was had, we were sat around the table then, and we were all telling funny stories that I can't repeat for this video. We carried on then for a bit to see what was around, and one of the lecturers from Cape Town Uni got us an Uber back to our hotel for the night. We went into the hotel pool then for a bit, and later on me and Levi shared a medium pizza, as it equated to about 6 slices for roughly the equivalent of £6 in rand. The African currency is in rand. I think it's 20 rand is a pound roughly. So yeah, we had 3 slices each, so bargain. It was a lovely midnight feast, and we had our pizza slices whilst watching Better Call Saul. Fun times. We're taking full advantage of the fact that things were cheaper in South Africa. Now this trip is called an educational exchange for a reason. We spent some time with the students at the University of Cape Town. We woke up about 9, and we went out for breakfast for 9:30. I had eggs Benedict. It was lovely. And there was no mix-up with the menu this time. We got to the Cape Town campus then for like 10:30ish, because they were quite slow at delivering the food. But the food was lovely, but we were a bit late. But when we arrived, we were taken to the performance space room where we did proper introductions between us and the Cape Town students. Now, for us, January means that we are 5 months into our course, having started in September, or maybe like 4.5 months, really, but whatever. But for them in South Africa, they haven't started back yet. I think they start and finish later than we do, and that their break also finishes later. But some of the students came in to do the workshops anyway. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that the week after we left was the week they start their course, or the 4th year of their course, I think. Yeah. On this day, we went to 2 museums. We walked first to the Slave Lodge with the South Africa students, and we had an hour to look around and take note of what we thought stood out to us. It was a really interesting activity. The building itself was a prison for slaves to be kept in, and it was later turned into a slave history museum. It was really interesting, hearing about how it was abolished and how apartheid was overcome, and slaves fighting back and whatnot. I love history. I find it to be so very interesting. It sort of scratches an itch that nothing else can. But yeah, we had an hour then to sort of look around, and what stood out to me the most, I remember this. What stood out to me the most was this really long wall with the information of slaves whose records had been archived. There were obviously so many more, but what was shown was a modern reconstruction of how the slaves were identified, with archived information added in. These were the records of only the slaves whose records had survived. And the fact that it covered a whole long wall just goes to show the extent of how much of an impact it had on their lives. Honestly, it was huge. Each little placard was a life. And it got me thinking a lot. I chose this for my main object, right? But each placard had their name, death date, country of origin, and how they were known on them. I find it so interesting, how much of an impact that this had. The history of South Africa is so interesting. But yeah, there was a lot more interesting things to look at and information there in that museum. The second one was the South African National Museum, right? And there was a metal statue that, when a light was shone through, it made a silhouette of people sort of being united. I wish we'd done some form of silhouette techniques in one of our performances. It would have been so cool. Then we went to the second museum, the South Africa National Gallery, which was my favourite museum of the two, right? And there we learned a lot about a dude named Steve Cohen, who did a lot of controversial street performances, art, and shows, if you can call them shows. I don't know if you'd call them shows, but yeah, a lot of his stuff was mainly done for shock value, I think, or to raise awareness of something. Some of his works included a real life or 2 real life human skulls as well, which was really cool. But yeah, the museum actually censored it with a black cloth. It was up to you whether you wanted to have a look. But yeah, and also there was a lovely statue of the Grim Reaper made out of keyboard keys, which I found interesting. It's how it's symbolizing how internet is slowly killing us, and that we spend too much time on video games before it's too late. But yeah, it was really cool. I loved going to the museums. The second one more than the first, but both were brilliant. We had just over an hour for this one then, before we had lunch, and a group of us went to the sushi place. And it was actually really nice. I didn't expect it to be, because the last time I had sushi, I fell ill. But that was back in Cardiff, or here in Cardiff, and I had a lovely box of salmon sushi. Over the course of this documentary, you're going to hear a lot about how much I eat salmon and love salmon, but it's so expensive here, so I don't tend to eat it very often. But yeah, after the dinner, we went back to the uni where we fed back what we thought was most interesting, and we were told that this would link back to the next day. We chatted for a bit and discussed what would happen the next day, but all we were told was that we'll find out tomorrow. Once it was time to go, then we headed back to our hotel for a bit before all going out for food to this seafood place. Now, I was really excited for this because it was at the pier. Yeah, still working. It was at the pier, and normally when you go to a pier, you get a decent, banging, large fish and chips, you know. So I was very excited. I got my drink, which was a lovely popcorn vanilla milkshake. I splurged out on money. What can I say? It was a treat on holiday. The fish and chips came, and it was bloody small. And I ordered the large size, so I feel sorry for whatever kid gets that and ends up with a little goldfish with like 3 chips on their plate. You know, like Ruth can empathise with this. We both were on the same wavelength of getting it, and we were both miserable, I think, with what we ended up getting. I ended up getting some oysters as well from the starter menu, which were quite nice. I could say I've tried oysters now. We stayed here for a solid 3 hours ish, I think, chatting and whatnot, and having drinks, and you know, discussing how things were going and whatnot. Even if the food there was disappointing, the milkshake wasn't. You know, that milkshake carried my meal that day. And I can now say that I've tried them. Tried oysters. Yeah. I got an Uber back home, and then I was in bed ready for the next workshop for the next day. Day 4. On this day, we did our second day of workshops, learning about dramaturgy, exploring theatre elements with sound and space, doing performances with the items, which was followed by my second workshop that we did. I'll talk about the items in a minute. It was about object theatre and how objects, both ordinary or significant, can convey meaning and importance. Before we came on this trip, we were asked to bring something of significance, and I brought my photo of me passing my driving test. The phone number, a photo of when I passed my driving test, right? And what we had to do was empty our bags and put all of our stuff separated with tape. We did something similar in second year, but with string. But using tape was much more practical, I found. It's more consistent and less messy. It's, what's it called? It's something to do with the archaeology of your bag or something. And my bag is usually messy as hell with everything inside of it. But for the holiday, I had to empty it for hand luggage storage. I still had some things though, like my phone tripod and adapter plugs, which, by the way, were redundant because the hotel had South Africa plug sockets, but also UK ones. But hey ho. So yeah, I laid all my stuff out in sections with tape, and then we had to go around and make assumptions about other people's sections. Following that, then we used each of our objects to bring a chair to life, it was weird, but it was interesting. Yeah, by the end of it, there was a chair in a circle made by us, and we had to humanize it. People were bringing it headphones and hoodies and hobby stuff, and yeah, it looked really cool. I don't know if I can find a picture of it. If someone took a photo, I'll show it. But yeah. Doing the same then afterwards was interesting when the chair was sideways. It was trickier though, but fun. The dude that we made just looked drunk. Following that then we had our break, where I had sushi again, but this proper sushi salmon tray thing. A bit more expensive, but a lot more salmon on this one. I loved it. It was gorgeous. We ate our stuff and then headed back for the last bit of the workshop, where we told a story using everyone's objects. You could use anyone's object to make one image at first. Me and Dan were a duo on this one, and we made his Liverpool teddy that he brought in be held by its feet by my phone tripod, dangling above certain doom. That's what we did. The last task then was to introduce a before and an after scene. And what we did for that is we had the penguin, that keychain I bought the day before, or day before that, yeah, day two, with a massive gun, my phone tripod, holding the plush at gunpoint. That was before. Then we did that image of us, of the plush dangling on my phone tripod, being like a cliff, it's dangling. And the third one, we put the plush in my man bag as like an open casket coffin, which was very silly, but it was fun to do. On this day, then, we each did our own thing for food. So me, Levi, and Christina ordered a Chinese on Uber Eats, which I was very surprised to learn worked here. Yeah, and oh my god, it was lovely. But there is a but. It was amazing food. It was so good, but they didn't do chicken balls. They didn't do seaweed, chips, or curry sauce. What? But they did do a buy one get one free deal. So two tubs of chow mein for the price of one. Not complaining about that last one. But yeah, I also bought a little bit of soup to make up for the lack of sauce for me to dip into, because I would rather die than have sweet chili dip. I had my Chinese then in bed with a towel over me because I know what I'm like, and I was eating it with chopsticks, But I didn't make any mess though. But still, I will say that they didn't hold back with the portions. Like literally, I had a plate full of food, right? And I only ended up using like half of one tub of chow mein. It was mental. But yeah, me and Levi ended our night watching Better Call Saul, and we finished season 2 on this date. It was lovely food, and we ended up just saving the rest in our fridge for a future day. Day 5. Now, day 5 was the last day of the workshops for the first week. We did a clowning workshop on this day. It was quite cool. We had breakfast at 8, so got up about 7:30, and I had eggs and soldiers for breakfast. It was bloody lovely. I haven't had eggs and soldiers in ages before this trip. I need to have them more often. Runny eggs and soldiers. Anyway, we turn up to the uni for 9, and we meet the facilitator for the day. The first thing we do is we get clothes from the UCT costume cupboard to do the clowning workshop in. Now, I was expecting a small box of clothes or whatever, like a small room, because we have quite a small room at uni. Sorry, USW. But yeah, I thought us having a small room in uni, I thought we had quite a lot. But oh my god, they have such a huge room for costumes alone. Like, they have dedicated staff for costumes and props, and everything it was wild. We were all like, what? Like, not quite, but like a warehouse of costumes. It was mental. But yeah, I picked some stuff, and then when we got back to the room, we had to sign. We had to sign the clothes out, and then when we got back to the room, I put on this red nose, which was a nightmare to do because it was very fiddly. It took me 3 attempts to get it right. The string, but eventually we got there. We spent the day clowning and making comedy and physical comedy. It was really interesting, and it was good in general for social interaction and whatnot, because I generally enjoy messing around and having a laugh, etc. But it was really hard to go along with at first. There was a bit where we're all in a circle, and we enter the circle having eye contact with the opposite person as you circle each other, and you go back to where the other person was. I struggled with this because Not only because of my wonky eye, but also I felt this like really strong urge to look away at times. It was, yeah, it felt so weird. You're staring at this person, you're going around in a circle, trying not to break eye contact. But it felt so weird to just stare at people for so long. The woman noticed a lot of us having this struggle as well, and there was a chat about how like people aren't communicating like they used to. Um, and this was pretty much down to like phones and people texting and whatnot, and like how human interaction has changed from because of social media. And I found this really interesting because I've noticed over this last year that I do the same thing. Like I'll break eye contact with people if I've been like staring for a while. I don't know why I do it, but I need to break it. I need to break the habit, you know. But yeah, we did some more clowning exercises then, like laying out our clown costumes on the ground and going around each person's one to see like what sort of impression you got from it. And then the last thing we did before lunch was go around in a circle saying your name, address, and then pretty much then whatever you wanted, um, with a funny slash embarrassing story about yourself. Now I debated whether or not to tell mine, but I will. I debated in class and for this video, but I will. Right. So when it was my go, I said, "Hello, I'm JB Jackson. I live at." You get the idea. And my story is that I drive a Nissan Micra. My favorite color is blue. I love Doctor Who. And when I was 4, I was really into Thomas the Tank Engine. It was my Doctor Who back in the day. So one day, my mum's downstairs on the phone to my nan, and she hears a cry or something, followed by a lot of running downstairs. I'd got my knob stuck in the Thomas the Tank Engine DVD case somehow. Why did 4-year-old me do this? I don't know. Maybe I just love Thomas that much. But yeah, I mean, I never did it again. But I could just imagine the image of me running downstairs, DVD case flapping about, you know. But yeah, I told it. Everyone found it so hilarious. And then after everyone told their stories, we had lunch, and I had a Kit Kat and a drink. When we came back, then I put the costume back on, which was quite hard to do because it was so hot. Right, I'm just glad I didn't choose extra trousers to wear. You know, extra layers of clothes on top of the already really hot sun. We ended up being groups then. I meant to make a performance that told one of these embarrassing stories, but in a different way to sort of impress the facilitator who was playing as a judge. Um, and then our acts were for the king's coronation. Michael, our lecturer, got dragged into being the king in this, which he is anyway. So, but yeah, me, Levi, and Sophie were in a group for this, and we told the story of when I got my knob stuck in a penis flytrap called DVD case that brought music to the land of Pecker's Wood. It was quite a performance. We had to stand before the judge and answer questions like where we were from, what our act was, why was it important to where we were from, and yeah, it was just a load of dick puns, really. You know, we came from Pecker's Wood, just down by the Schlong narrow path until you reach the foliage. Our audience laughed a lot during our act. The peak of it for me though was one of two moments, right? Either one I was explaining where we came from because it was a lot of improvisation involved in this, but we agreed beforehand that we came from Pecker's Wood. But my brain was like on overdrive, it seems, and like 2 seconds before saying it, I thought of Schlong Narrow Path, which got everyone, including the facilitator, laughing. Yeah, either that moment or when the king Michael asked to see more. I asked him how much more of Peckers does he want to see. He later came up to us to tell us that we were very funny, which was the best compliment we could have received. And then after these shenanigans, it was nearly time to wrap up. So we did the circle thing that we did at the start, but at the end of the workshop, and people were using stronger eye contact this time, feeling more confident. I think I think as well it was also because we were still like sort of maybe getting used to each other, us lot at USW and the UCT students. I don't know, but it would be the last time that we wore these clown costumes, and the woman reminded us of that, and that we will never see each other again like this. And it felt like really like melancholic, like quite sad, it was really, yeah, I don't know why, but it did feel quite sad. Yeah, we did that. We took off the clown costumes and the red noses, and we said goodbye to the woman. She was great. It took a bit of time for me to get into that workshop, but when I did, I was into that workshop. It was really cool. Later on, then, back at the hotel, some of us went in the pool and we tried to make a whirlwind. That was very fun, and it lasted like 15-20 minutes. It was peak entertainment. And for food on this day, we just finished off the Chinese because there was so much from yesterday. And yeah, it just made sense. We also watched more Better Call Saul. Day 6. Today we woke up at 5:45ish because our bus was coming at 6:15 to take us on safari. It was a 2-hour ride roughly to Aquila. I don't know how you'd say it. Safari Reserve. We were told that we'd have breakfast there rather than one of the 3 hotel places. And I spent most of the time on the coach or minivan, whatever you want to call it, writing a lot of this documentary because I was quite far behind in it. So what you've heard so far, I was writing on the way to the safari park. But I had to rely on my photos that I'd taken, other people had taken, my Instagram stories, and at one point my bank statements to piece together a few of the things that we did at times, just so that everything was correct. But yeah, halfway across then, we stopped off at some small cafe place, which I thought was where the free breakfast was. And I get asked if I want a slice of cake. And I thought, yeah, again, I thought it was the free breakfast. So I say, oh, yes, please. Could I have the carrot cake one, please? And she happily cuts me a slice, and then brings up the card reader. Caught me off guard, but that did. But it was a lovely carrot cake, even if it did cost me the equivalent of £4. But we live on. It was a lovely carrot cake, and I was on holiday, so no regrets from me. We'll get back to the coach then, where we have another hour until we arrived. Here, they had a breakfast buffet. I slightly regretted having the cake, but again, we live on. Because I did feel very full after that, right? And yeah, we got there, but I was weary because I didn't want to have too much food, because being full and walking a lot is not a fun combo. But yeah, we got there, and the free breakfast was out, and we could go and have the free breakfast. But during this breakfast, we were treated to a lovely show of a bird helping itself to the same breakfast on display that we all ate. It was slightly fun to watch, some of us were sat at a table watching this, but also slightly concerning. One of the workers walked past, saw it, and carried on. One of us went over to look then, and you couldn't even tell the bread had been pecked. So God knows what else had been touched. But yeah, it was mainly the bread that there was pecking, and I didn't have any bread, so. But yeah. fun times. It was a very amusing spectacle to witness. It made me laugh a lot. But yeah, after food, then we go outside where there's these safari tour trucks waiting. We load on board, and I'm at the very back, which was the best seats because whilst everyone was stuck in rows of two, I had the entire back row to myself, so I could see on both sides. Like if something's on the left, I'll go over there. If it's on the right, I'll scoop my bum over to the right. And yeah, it was great. So the tour leader introduces himself and the safety rules, etc. You know, if you drop something, tell them they'll pick it up. Keep arms and legs inside and whatnot. And off we go. The ride was very bumpy. So to the point where like my organs felt rearranged, and my breakfast was in risk of having a cameo appearance, if you know what I mean. But the ride was lush, and we were bumping around, seeing all these wild animals, you know, zebras, rhinos, elephants, hippos, and ostrich, lions, baboons, and a giraffe, and birds, and it was brilliant, you know. At each animal stop, the truck would stop, and the tour guide would talk about each animal, you know, like facts about them and whatnot. It was very interesting. He was very passionate as well, which made it all the more enjoyable, you know. We got to a lake bit at one point, and the birds were chirping a song, and the tour guide said that that song was a kind of celebration kind of song. And he asked if there were any birthdays on board. And there wasn't any birthdays in our class that were coming up, I don't think. But without hesitation, Henry chimes up and goes, "Yeah, it's Jamie's birthday." And I remember just looking at him in absolute confusion. Part of me was like, "Is it my birthday? Wait, no, it's not my birthday." But Henry just looks at me as if to say, "Go along with it." So I do. So yeah, the tour leader then drags the whole class into singing "Happy Birthday" to me.
Jamie.
Huh?
It's your birthday, isn't it? Today?
Yeah.
Is it today? That's why he's singing.
Oh.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jamie. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you, everyone.
Hooray!
I mean, it was a nice moment. And I remember feeling like a fraud, knowing that it's not my birthday, but it was a lovely moment. Do you know what I mean? The birds could have been chirping to celebrate my future birthday that's being celebrated 2 months too early. Yeah, sure. Yeah. The whole safari goes on for about 2 hours, I think. And I would say it was one of the highlights of the whole trip. The landscape was gorgeous. It was the animals were it was just so cool to see the animals, and an overall amazing experience, you know? One of so many brilliant experiences on the trip. But yeah, after the safari, then we had food, which was the same place, but they did a dinner buffet, and it was lush. It was very nice food, including some chicken legs, and just like slid off the bone. Oh, it was lovely, very lovely, and a lovely red velvet cake was had. It was delicious scran. Yeah, once food went down, we went to this massive swimming pool that was in the safari resort place. And oh my god, it was lush. A glorious blue massive pool. A load of us went in and we had a few hours. I bought goggles for the equivalent of £10, and it was great being able to go under the water and see, because I hate getting water in my eyes. I really do. But yeah, after some time in the pool, a lot of us chilled by it on these beach chairs with an umbrella. This was when I hit the peak of holiday mode, right? All the work I've done to get to where I was then was leading up to that particular moment where I was in a deck chair enjoying myself by the pool, you know, with my boobs out, with a glorious, it was a glorious view of the landscape in the pool. But all the work I'd done and stuff I've stressed over, and yeah, all of that was worth it for that moment. And I remember how I felt during this time, and it was just magical. I didn't have anything to think about in that moment. My head was totally clear. That's long since gone. What I hadn't factored in, though, was sun cream. More on this later. We left at about 4:30ish to go back to the hotel, where some people decided to go out for the evening. I decided to stay back at the hotel, though, because I'm not one for drinking. Yeah, I wasn't getting drunk on holiday. I don't think I got drunk, but I didn't want to drink. I'm not a fan of alcohol in general. But then, me and Levi got a lovely pizza and a snack to end the evening. Day 7, the midpoint. We woke up at about 9:30 and had breakfast around 10. I had a lovely eggs benedict with salmon. I should mention all the other eggs benedicts had salmon in them. And green tea in the third of our options for free breakfast. After breakfast, we all got Ubers to the waterfront, where we'd be going to the pier. We had about an hour then to walk around and see the shops until we all met back. On this day, we went to Robben Island, where Nelson Mandela was held for 18 years during South Africa's apartheid. We went inside the building and queued up. Along the wall were facts about Robben Island and how many important figures were imprisoned there throughout history, or the history of the apartheid, and how the island was used over the years. We got onto this boat then, and someone was taking photos of us all by the boat, which was nice, which I thought would get them all after the trip. But yeah, we go from this building onto this boat that would then take us to the island in 30 minutes. Now, to my knowledge, I have never had a proper boat ride before, or hadn't had a proper boat ride before the trip. Even if this was only 30 minutes, I'm counting it as my first proper boat ride. It was lush. The landscape was calming to watch. You got the sea as the boat bobbed up and down. When we arrived, then we get off the boat and we wait for everyone, to follow. And we walk to these buses that would take us very near to the main prison. So we go inside the main prison then. The tour guide who showed us the prison was very entertaining and interesting to listen to. He was a prisoner here when Robben Island was used as a prison, and he talked about his experiences like fighting during the apartheid. He was very passionate. Of course he was passionate, but it was so interesting to listen to. And he would show us around the important areas of the prison, which were deeply fascinating. I love my history, so seeing how the inmates were treated in their living conditions and learning in general about the South African apartheid were really interesting, especially from a first-hand source who was there, Yeah. We were able to go inside certain prison cells, the prison yard sections. We could see Mandela's cell and other sections of the prison where the prisoners would have been subject to. Things were left how they were as well, so peeling paint and how things looked back then were how they look now. I found it really interesting how well preserved the place was after 30 years. It doesn't seem so long ago history-wise, but you could see paint peeling, rock imperfections, and colours fading away, which just goes to show how time moves on. But the students at Cape Town that we're working with that live here, their parents would have been growing up around the time of apartheid, or at least definitely grandparents. So it's a really close and relevant subject to them, you know? The tour around the prison lasted for about an hour, I think it was. And then we get back on the bus and have a tour of the rest of Robben Island, learning about the loneliest prisoner who was kept there. His name was Robert Sabukwe, I think it was. He had to stay in his own house there and wasn't allowed to talk to anyone for years to try and break his spirit. It's really fascinating stories. Both the tour guides for the prison and on the bus were prisoners at the time, and yeah, very entertaining to watch. You know, it was one of my favourite trips, and they both mentioned as well how for the tours they'll try and get either ex-prisoners to run the tours, as both of them were. If not, if they can't get them, political activists, fair. If not, then historians. So it's always very accurate and as detailed as possible. I just think that's brilliant, you know? They deliver an authentic tour. Yeah. After the bus tour, then we're driven back to the boat that had a gift shop nearby, and I bought a small jar of honey and a drink. We get back on the boat, and this time I was on the outside deck for most of it. Holding on to the rails of the boat as we went over the waves was really fun. It was very, very bumpy at the back. A bit scary, given I didn't want to lose my phone by dropping it. But I didn't. I didn't drop my phone. Thank God. But yeah, nonetheless, it was fun. We had quite a few nice photos for this, as we were trying to hold on as people struggled to get a grip and to keep still, and that was amusing. But it did make for some amazing photos. Once the boat arrived, then back at the pier, we got our stuff, got off the boat, and then we see the dudes with all our photos that they took of us getting on the boat, all printed out on a stand. The photos and the frame around it wasn't worth the price they wanted, though, so I just took a photo of the photo and called it quits. Yeah. We went for food then at the food marketplace, and I had a chicken tikka masala and rice, which was very nice. It was that same marketplace where all the stuff's on the outside, and there's a massive group of tables in the middle. But yeah, they put some sparkling water in dry ice as well. So I had a little cup that would smoke, which is it's a fun little gimmick, you know. And I remember having eaten it all. Christian got the same thing as me, and he was struggling with his face going red, bless him. And he goes, "Oh, there's chilies in there." And I remember looking at him going, "Are there?" But yeah, after food, then we got back to the hotel and had quite a chilled evening, I'd say. I had some honey tea. By the way, me and Levi loved the teas that the hotel staff would keep replenishing when they came in to do our rooms, bless them. Me and Levi watched some awful films. We watched The Room with Tommy Wiseau and Tusk with some snacks. He was on call with his girlfriend, and I couldn't see the phone. So this lovely photo was taken, me squinting, trying to look at the phone. But yeah, we had quite a few snacks, and were just ripping into these really shit films that were hilariously bad. It was a fun night. Yeah, as we left the room for each day, the hotel staff would come in and do the beds and replace the towels and replenish the teas with some biscuits. We were treated like royalty at that hotel, you know, and it was every day too. Apart from the day when Levi was in the hotel, so they didn't. But on every other day, they replaced they tidied our rooms a little bit, bless them, because we didn't keep ours always in the tidiest of conditions. But they'd come in, they would tidy it a bit. We always had new duvets every day, new towels, the teas. We loved the teas. They were great. But yeah, that was day 7. Day 8. So today was Sunday, and we had a bit of a lie-in. Went for... Is that whistle working? Yeah. Day 8. The day was Sunday, and we had a bit of a lie-in. We got up about 10ish and went for breakfast. I had a breakfast burger and a mango smoothie. It was lush. We went to the beach for a few hours on this day, and we all hired out some chairs and umbrellas to chill by the sea. We had to keep moving them back, though, because as it went on, the sea kept coming in. Time for another move, I think. Levi got scammed by a local at one point. I got reminded of it just by reading this now. So someone came over. I was sat next to Levi, and someone came over and dumped his art on the floor, showing us and like speaking about how he and his brother made them and that he was proud of them, etc. And he also said that they'd be sold really cheap. And he convinces Levi to buy one for 200 rand, which is just under £10. Fair deal, really. It's homemade. The picture didn't look so bad. So Levi goes on his phone, goes to pay, and the dude covered the price on the paying thingy with the bright with the boiling sun, the light. I didn't pick up on it because I was in my own world, and I just hear Levi go, "No, not 1,200. That's like £50." And I turn over and I look at Levi and I just burst out laughing. And I stared at the man intently. And Levi had to keep telling the man to give him his money back. And the man kept trying to negotiate with Levi, trying to say that if he gave him back 900 rand to be paid 300 for the picture, which is about £15-ish. But I think by this point, the memory of the picture had been sullied too much, and Levi wanted a full refund. Of course he did. I would have wanted the same thing. But what I found funny was the scam bloke used tape from another painting to roll up the one Levi was going to buy, so ripping off another poor person who buys one. And I remember Levi saying that he didn't want the painting anymore and chucked it on the floor. And eventually our lecturer came over, and I think she scared the man. Good old Sean. The man paid him back in full. What I find funny though is if the bloke had honoured the original price, he would have had a sale. He convinced Levi to buy one, and I remember giving this man the most evil of looks, and he looked ashamed as he gathered his pictures. But yeah, and also more people in the class were coming over, so the man probably felt like, oh my god, there's loads of them. But yeah, after that though, we had a lovely few hours on the beach, looking out, over the sea and sand with the shade. I bought a Coke and an ice cream after checking the price. And yeah, my feet were not covered by the shade, and I had really bad sunburn from the day before on my shoulders. They were like burnt, and it hurt to put sun cream on them. And I put a towel over my shoulders to cover them. But yeah, I did go in the sea for a bit though to cool my feet down. Yeah. But then after a while, me and Levi went to have a look at the local stalls that were all expensive for what they had. And the same dude who tried scamming Levi earlier had a stall, the dude with his art. And I remember us looking at the stall, looking at the man. He didn't even indulge us with a hello, just looked really guilty. Technically he lost money on it because when he gave Levi a full refund, they paid with cash. They gave him the money back in cash. But the machine would have taken some additional money for processing fees. So the dude lost money as a result of his scam, which I find very funny. But yeah, we had some lovely ice cream, and we went for food to this place that did lovely salad bowls. I really enjoyed mine. Levi didn't so much though. and he got us an Uber back to the hotel where we chilled for a few hours. Now, there's a bit I forgot to mention here, but in the morning, me and Levi decided to go for a massage on this day. Casey would later ask as well if she could join us, to which, yeah, we didn't mind that, of course. We looked for places online nearby that did massages, and we decided we were going to get a full body massage. Now, in Cardiff, at least in Cardiff, this means back, legs, arms, and neck, maybe head, right? Here, we found out it's pretty much everywhere but the crown jewels. It was quite the experience. I remember freezing up at first because, oh my god, when we later recounted how it went over some noodles, I mean, it's funny now, but we were all a bit shocked to say the least. Very different to Cardiff. Yeah, that was an experience. We came back to the hotel then to keep watching Better Call Saul for the evening on our lovely dodgy streaming site, and we chilled. Day 9, Monday. On this day, we went to the cheetah outreach place, and it was amazing. While we waited, we were able to look around the place, and they had tortoises and meerkats, more animals that we got to see in South Africa. When the time came then, we go to this section within where we put our bags in lockers, and we had to stand in this disinfectant tray on the ground because we were going to stroke a cheetah. I was very excited for this. It's not exactly the kind of experience you can get back home. So we're here on these benches, and the woman explains what you do. Don't stroke too gently, or the cheetah might think there's a bug on it and hit you with its tail. You only stroke its back and listen to the two guides. One would be in front, one would be in behind us at all times. Yeah. I was a part of the first group. There were 5 of us in this group: me, Sophie, Henry, Ruth, and Dan, all of us in our cluster that are in our class. And it was the most amazing experience being able to go up to the cheetah and stroke it. It was amazing. One of the tall people took photos of us, which I'm very grateful for. They took quite a lot of photos too, which I'm even more grateful for because I get to pick which one I like. But yeah, once we all had a go then, we walked back to the holding section where everyone else in the class has their go. There are 3 main groups that we were split into as a class. I was the first one, and there were 2 others after ours. Once we'd all gone then, we go to the gift shop where I bought this adorable cheetah. I love it. A frozen bottle of water as an ice pack, and a Sprite. I realised now, though, that Sprite in South Africa, and Coke actually, don't taste the same as they do here. They taste extra sugary, and they feel a lot less substantial than they do back here. Yeah, I really went off Coke and Sprite, and you feel more thirsty than when you were before you started drinking it. But yeah, we looked around for a bit more then until we got back on the coach to the University of Cape Town, where we did a small workshop there in the evening, and went to Tiger's Milk after that for food. And I had this triple combo burger thing, which I thought meant 1 burger but with 3 layers. Not 3 burgers, 1 layer each. I had this with loaded fries, which was lovely, to be fair, and very, very filling. And also with a lot of green pepper sauce. That stuff is lovely. Not too spicy, but it's got a lovely tang to it, I was having loads of the stuff. My sunburn was still quite painful on this day too. Shoulders and feet now. Putting socks and shoes on were just painful, and every now and again they would rub and ugh. But yeah, I ended up just washing and drying my hair before going to bed for the night, watching Better Call Saul on the dodgy streaming site. I was still very full in the morning, so I had some fruit for breakfast before our workshops for the day. This time, though, the workshops were ran by our lecturers, which I really enjoyed. We were working with text this time, doing monologues and songs. I especially enjoyed the monologue work activities that we did, which were based around our objects. That was my favourite thing that we did that day. I wrote my monologue based around the moments when I pulled back into the test centre at the end of my driving test. That's what I did mine on. But yeah, in the evening then, we were going to go to this place in Africa called, it was called Mama Africa. And it looked really good. But we go inside, and initially there were 12 of us there. We open the menu, and it's like 550 rand, which is like £25 per person from the large group menu. Starters were like £10 each, or there's the option of large sharing platters for £40, which I thought, sod that. And so, well, quite a few of us thought sod that. Although looking back, £25 is actually a steal, I think, but whatever. I don't know what the food was like because we went elsewhere, and we went to Tiger's Milk, the Wetherspoons of South Africa. I had some lovely nachos there and a cranberry juice for just under 200 rand, just under a tenner, I think. And yeah, I got Levi started on watching The Amazing Digital Circus on that night. We watched the first 5 episodes of it on his dodgy streaming site, and then Better Call Saul. But yeah, if you were to go out here, I mean, you can get a decent meal and drink and spoons for like £15 So it wasn't that expensive, but it looked expensive, I think, because 550 rand. But yeah. Day 11, I decided not to have breakfast again because I wanted the extra sleep. Levi wasn't very well, bless him, so around 9:40 I woke up, I got ready, I went to the university for the next day's workshop. This one was just a short one though, preparing to put everything that we'd done over the week and a half together to consolidate it all. We had our break from 12 till 1, and then we had a tour by this company called Youthando. I think that's how you pronounce it. But yeah, they took us on minibus tours across these developing sections of South Africa that they've helped out on. And it's really cool. First, we went to this like Greenlands place, like greenhouse farm bit where they grow crops and flowers for the community. So that was cool. It was very hot though, and I was not at peak form. After this, then we went back on the minibus, and we went to this school where we could see the pupils that lived there in these developing communities, right, and see like how they lived and how they were taught. It was really interesting, right, because when we saw like how they had their education, it didn't look like too different from like what you'd expect a primary school to be, back here at home, despite initial beliefs beforehand. I'm guilty of that, and I think it goes to show how like my perspective as a result of the trip has been changed, and I was wrong thinking that their classrooms weren't going to look great, but they did, and I was absolutely wrong. The children here were from like 3 to 6, I think, from memory, or like 4 to 7, and it felt really like personal being able to watch in with their classes, even only for a little bit, but still. Especially because when we walked into the older ones among them, they sung us nursery rhymes. Bless them, it was really wholesome. Then we went on the bus for the final part of the trip, where we went to this community arts type building, where we were honoured to be able to watch some of the African students act, sing and dance and play music. It was really cool. Their community looked so close knit and was so talented. It was really entertaining watching them all play, Yeah, after watching them, and it was brilliant, the jazz group played a song and everyone joined in. There was a circle of all of us, like UCT, USW, and the locals, and like people would be drawn in to dance in the circle at times, and it was so like spontaneous, and I loved it. For that brief bit of time, you could forget about the boiling hot sun melting your brain cells, and everyone came together to enjoy this moment. It was amazing. Such a good memory that I've got. I love it. Yeah, I'll never forget that. I will never forget that moment. It was brilliant. After it, me and Christian had a chat with one of the actors, one of the locals, and he mentioned how he was self-teaching himself in his community and how he wanted to carry on learning acting, bless him. It was so wholesome. It was amazing. And then we got back on the bus after that. It was really sad that was over, actually. But we got back on the bus where we were driven back to the university and then went back to the hotel for a few hours. Now, some people went and got a tattoo to remember the time in South Africa, whereas some of us went to this museum of illusions instead. I can't remember who found out. I think it was Ruth and Dan. I think so. Yeah, we went from 6 till 7, and it was really cool. There were loads of illusions, like, messed with my brain. Stuff that, like, depended on where you stood, your proximity to the exhibition, where you looked. Things that, like, tickled your brain, or, like, sense of stability, or things that were just amusing. There were quite a few things that I found amusing. Some might say unfortunate mishaps. I had my hoodie wrapped around my waist, folded twice so it doesn't fall. This does mean, though, that when I went inside the pin art, it looked a bit suspect. That poor worker who had to reset the pin art without laughing. I think she was trying not to, but you could tell, bless her. She was like, it was just as bad in the light exhibition that gave you multiple shadows. Yeah, it makes me look quite well endowed, we'll say. That was very posh. Anyway, there was a lot of really cool stuff there that were very interesting to look at. My favourite was the house one, where we all looked like we're defying gravity. And also some puzzles that I managed to solve one of them. I was quite proud of myself for that. But yeah, we had a quick look around the gift shop, and then we went for food in this place next door to our hotel called the Fat Cactus. It's a Tex-Mex place, and it was lovely. It was very nice food. I had a barbecue steak fajita wrap thing where you make like your own wraps. It was bloody gorgeous. How I tackled this bad boy was by chucking all the ingredients together in the big main dish, mixing it, and then making the wraps. But a few of us asked for more wraps because there's only so much that can go in a wrap, and they gave you 3 before it starts to fall out and just become messy. But I kid you not, it was peak. It was a very lovely scran. The waiter we had as well, oh my god, he was very bubbly and fun. He took photos for us at both ends of the table, and he was very clappy and very, very passionate, and yeah. I remember having this gorgeous strawberry milkshake, later chocolate milkshake, when I swapped with Megan because she didn't like hers. I'm going to make her feel really guilty now if she's watching this, but I miss my strawberry milkshake. It was better than the chocolate one, and she should feel the shame of 1,000 strawberry milkshakes. Obviously, I'm joking, right? The chocolate one was nice. Not as good as the strawberry one, but it brings me joy to make her suffer. We love them, really. They know that. Anyway, after food then, it was about 9ish, so we went back to the hotel, and me and Levi watched Better Call Saul for the evening. It was a very decent day. I very much enjoyed it. Day 12, the last workshop day. We woke up and had breakfast. I had my lovely salmon eggs Benedict, and we went to the uni. On this day, it was really bloody hot, and most of us were struggling to find the energy to work. But that didn't stop us. We were working on what we started yesterday, using all the stuff that we did over the last 2 weeks to create a performance. The object workshops, the clowning, the text-based stuff, all of that to create a performance. We did this from like 10 till 1ish, had some more time to work on them, and then there was a sort of mini break where the heat did become a little bit unbearable. I remember loads of us were just like chilling on the floor and on chairs, mainly the USW lot, because the UCT students had most of them had a meeting for something. I don't know what. Maybe because they were starting back the next week. I don't know. But it meant that we couldn't work on our stuff anyway, the performances for the next day. So people just chilled. And in the meantime, our lecturers asked us to be interviewed about the whole trip, the whole South Africa experience, which I was more than happy to do. But my brain was not at maximum efficiency for that. And I struggled to think of things of what I was going to say as I was sweating on camera. I think I said a lot, but it was a challenge, It was a massive challenge. And once the students had come back, we carried on working on our stuff, as we do, until about 4ish, I think. Till about 4ish, and until we showed each of our group pieces. I liked ours. We had each of our objects in this museum long after humanity has gone, and aliens live through the memories associated with the objects. It was really cool. We used a lot of improv in ours, similar to Pecker's Wood. And we're told that ours was quite funny. And quite often during performances made on the trip, my group would make comedic pieces. And I'm proud to say most of the time we had most people laughing during ours. And also, one of the UCT students made this little thing for our piece, our museum, where aliens would become humans and live to be a human for a day through the object. Yeah, our thing was very fun, and I enjoyed making it. People seemed to enjoy watching it. And yeah, I'll take that. After all the performances had been watched, we talked about them and all the work that we had done together over the 2 weeks, and how everything was concluding with this workshop. It was quite sentimental, During this moment, I remember thinking, how fast this whole educational and cultural exchange had flown by. The workshops were brilliant, the trips were invaluable. Even though this was to be the end of the workshops, it wasn't strictly the end of it all yet. We later on went back to the hotel and we got food at the Fat Cactus again. Am I going to stay? Yeah, there we go. But with all of us as a class, including the UCT students and their lecturer, it was lovely. I had what Ella had last time we went, which was a pulled pork burger with chips. Oh, it was bloody lovely. Once most people had left to go back to the hotel, right next door to the Fat Cactus, it was literally Fat Cactus, walk, hotel. It was great. Some of us stayed for an extra 10 minutes to talk to the UCT students. We said goodbye, got some of their Instagrams, and then I headed back to the hotel for the night. Yeah. I watched the last 2 episodes of The Amazing Digital Circus with Levi. I remember it was brilliant getting him hooked on the series, because now both of us together have to wait for the last few episodes to drop, which is in mid-March, I think it is. So we get to look forward to that together. It was a nice way to end the day. Yeah. I do wish they made more episodes of Digital Circus, but there won't be, and they've said that. I suppose it beats having loads of filler episodes. But there we go. Day 13, the penultimate day. We woke up early today, about 7ish, and we met in the lobby for 7:40. Today we went to Table Mountain, the massive mountain that loomed over where we were staying, and pretty much the whole of Cape Town. We arrived there in Ubers, and we got our student tickets there. All of us with some strangers go into this massive gondola that takes us up the mountain. It was very close to the wall. We were there, gondola edge was there, wall was there. But yeah, and it seemed quite scary at first. We were what seemed to be bumps. But there we go. The gondola was quite big as well, so that didn't feel too cramped. I was close to the outside as well, so I had a decent view. Yeah, it was really cool. I'm glad we weren't all like that. And eventually we get to the top of the mountain, and I remember it being very windy. Recording.
Hi guys.
Fucking stupid.
It's cold. It's not cold.
It's not.
It's not cold.
It's really not cold.
The journey up here was bloody terrifying.
It was okay.
It was
wasn't
scary.
that bad.
Yeah, they're playing with those little pendulum things. That's
It's not a
about it.
pendulum.
It's a pendulum.
It swings. It does go in the...
Doing a tourist thing.
We're on Table Mountain.
Hi.
Doing a tourist.
Like, subscribe. Hi, Gaming.
You should get Michael in it.
Yeah.
It's not your channel.
Shut up, Levi.
It was very windy. It was great. The hair on my arm would stand up, and my hair would go. It was great, and I remember being able to looking around the place. I never let my hair get this long. And seeing the landscape of Cape Town below. You already know that I took loads of photos. We were able to look around for a decent amount of time as well, around the mountain, looking in the gift shop, the cafe. Fair play to the staff being there, Every day they'd have to go on the gondola to Cape Mount to the mountain. That's pretty cool though. Probably enjoyed that. Fun trips from every shift. I bought a t-shirt from there, which I wish I didn't wear back home, or I would have worn it for this video. I also bought an ice cream that didn't last very long at all in the heat and the wind. That did not last very long, and it was a struggle having to go around it, and it was dripping. Yeah, but yeah, it was only the equivalent of £1 there, which was a bargain even for South Africa. Some of us then, me, Levi, Ruth, and Dan, took this pathway that took you along the mountain. We almost took the wrong one though, and at one point we were sort of descending down the mountain at one point. But yeah, luckily one of them noticed and we went back on the right path track, and we got loads of brilliant photos.
Seat is gone.
That is a lush view. Especially like with the background in distance as well. I mean, we had to be quick at times because sometimes the fog would like cover the landscape over. But yeah, eventually we go back on the gondola and back to the hotel because this was the last day in South Africa. So a lot of people went off shopping and did their own thing, you know. Me and Levi went and got some noodles from this really nice place. I'm gonna miss this noodle place though, as well as Tiger's Milk. Yeah, they were my favourite places to go, I think, for food. We look around then the local place as Levi wanted to get jewellery for his dad, and he eventually got this like really cool ring for his dad. And after we tried several places for it, but we couldn't find a place that didn't look dodgy. Yeah. We all then go to the waterfront and the craft market, which was my favourite place to go. We go to the craft market then, which was my favourite shop because it was all handmade stuff. And I bought this lovely homemade frame, and I think it looks stunning. You know, I want to put a class photo of all the people on the trip in it. It'd be lovely. I think it'd be well lush. Yeah, a proper homemade thing, you know. It's better than I think that's better than any gift shop. Yeah. After that, then we carry on walking around for a bit until we go to the market one last time, and I had some chicken wings. They're very nice, but very small. I'll also miss the market too. The market, Tiger's Milk, and the noodle place. After the chicken wings, we carry on walking around, having a look, and then we were watching this performance on the street. Really cool. And then we go for another place for food. I had a double bacon cheeseburger and an Oreo milkshake, my last South African meal before back to normality. It was very, 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 very nice. Most people then go and Uber back, but not me, Henry, and Levi. We walked back to the hotel, which was a 50-minute walk, and we reminisced over the last 2 weeks, which I really enjoyed, you know. It was a nice lad's walk back. I nearly lost my second hat on the road as well, because it's quite windy, surprisingly. And we all tried picking up this like rock thing at the petrol station, and received reassurance that we were on the right track by a dodgy officer, it looked like. But yeah, when we got back to the hotel, I went to sleep quite quickly that night, I think. I had my final bath in that giant bathtub, and I packed some of my stuff for the next day, and I was asleep. Day 14. We had to get up at 4:15 and have all our stuff downstairs for 4:45 in the morning, as the coach was coming at 5 to take us back to the airport.
Bye-bye, boutique.
We arrived there at 5:25ish, and our flight was at 7:50. This 12-hour flight back to Paris was not very fun. The Wi-Fi didn't work, so that's 12 hours with no signal. It was delayed by like an hour, which meant that when we got to Paris, we'd have to rush. And I found it hard to sit like this time. I mean, I got up a few times, but still, I found it harder to sit, be comfortable. And I was sat at the aisle end next to Henry and Levi this time. You know, I honoured the bargain of having Levi sit at the window this time, of course. That was the deal. I didn't mind being at the aisle or the window, so long as I wasn't in the middle. Because that's just like, yeah. But I was watching films and playing Monopoly most of the time on this flight. I won though. I finally won a game of Monopoly. It was great. I beat those bots. I watched Beetlejuice 2, Despicable Me 4, and The First Omen. Very different films. Very interesting films. Food was quite nice. It was like a chickeny thing with a roll, some other stuff. Yeah, it was lovely. Oh, and Family Guy, which was very shit. Like, I used to love Family Guy, but oh my god, what has it turned into? It was awful. It wasn't even funny. Eventually, we land back in Paris. We were all running to catch the next flight. We had to get back to London. Oh shit! We're staying in France tonight.
All that. I've missed my class.
I have no idea where I'm sitting. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Luckily, they had delayed the plane though, so that was cool. This flight was only like an hour, roughly. But by now, I was feeling like dead inside, and it was like 10 in the It was 10 in the evening then. So the hour flight happened, and we got the coach. After a lot of travelling across the airport, and we got the coach after a lot of travelling across the airport and the shuttles within. We had to run to catch the National Express bus back to Cardiff, which was not a fun ride back from what I remember. My brain was broken, and I fell asleep halfway through, somehow, which I'm very grateful for. But we arrived back in Cardiff at 2 a.m, back in my accommodation at like 2:40, where I briefly recorded a small little message. And just like that, it was all over. I am so tired. When we got back to my accommodation, I had to the key card to my door didn't work, so I had to go to reception and ask the security to let me in. So on Monday I've got to get a new key card, I think. So that's fun. I don't think I got the key card wrong from the South Africa place, because it worked. But yeah, I don't know. I'm way too tired. Good night. I passed out. I fell asleep not long after. And that's the end of the trip. It was a brilliant 2 weeks. Possibly the best 2 weeks of my life. Although, this trip only happened thanks to the hard work of our lecturers and people who raised money for the trip, and Tithe, a scheme that grants money for this sort of thing to be able to happen. You know, the musical we did this year with directed by Lara and Ella, the money we got from that as well. The trip has been invaluable for me, and I know I will never forget it. Not one line of this trip will be forgotten by me, as so many beautiful and amazing memories were created in South Africa. And it was just the best time, you know? I know I speak for the class when I say it was the peak of my time at USW. Nothing else could possibly top it, and I get to have come away with these. I can't even think of a word to suit it. These phenomenal memories of the adventure we all had together, you know? Thank you, dear viewer, for listening to me talk about my class trip to South Africa. I don't know, as recording this, how long it's going to be, but I know it's going to be a long video. But this trip has been the best experience of my life, and is going to be one of my most important videos I have made on this channel. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Just knocked the microphone. But yeah, I do hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, as much as I enjoyed the holiday, you know, more so. And you can probably tell I tanned quite a bit when I was there. I don't know if you can tell. The room lighting might not make it so obvious. But But it has also been like a week, well, almost a week since we come back, so no. But it has been like 4 days since we came back, so might be a bit less obvious. But yeah, with that being said, that is the end of this documentary. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Have a good day. Don't forget to drink hot chocolate. Stay safe. And from me, it is goodbye for now.
How long can you go for?
Oh, look at it.
I can't do that.
He's making me dizzy.
Beat me to 1 that.